people from all over regard democracy as the ultimate form of government. They look toward its promises of freedom and liberty, not thinking about if or what alternatives could improve society and ultimately their happiness. So what do people think when they think of democracy?
Freedom, like being able to do what you want to do, not being controlled on everything that you need to do, stuff like that.
I think of the history of the country, that we fought to have the ability to do as we please, the freedom that we have today.
Democracy, I think of majority rules.
I think that we should be thinking of democracy as good government, not about political factions or concepts that are hard and fast.
Democracy, the way that the government is run today, that the government's taking over all of our decision making or anything that we do.
Government, freedom, America pretty much.
It's not perfect, but I'll certainly take it.
I think of people deciding what's best for their living, for their welfare, and people like voting for representatives that will make laws and will make the best actions to welfare, to deliver welfare to the rest of the community and to look always for the best of the nation.
Dr. Lauren J. Sammons, professor of classical studies at Boston University and author of What's Wrong with Democracy, sees this as a problem.
We all believe we're involved, and somehow we think it's the ultimate form of government. It's always about making our democracy more democratic or more perfect or purer. Somehow we're going to refine this thing down. So we've accepted this somehow. It's just almost in our cells at this point.
In his book, Sammons explains that in 500 BC, during the first ancient democracy of Athens, times were different, and the culture that made up the Athenian Demokratia was built on a stronger sense of loyalty to the city-state.
I would say that the Greeks teach us a valuable lesson in that the polis system worked as well as it did for as long as it did because citizenship cost people something. There was a base level of things you were expected to do to have that privilege. And so I think that lesson from Greece is a very powerful one.
So if such great lessons came from an ancient democracy, why did our founding fathers take a dislike and cautionary step back from democracy when building our Constitution? Dr. Jack Crittenden, a professor at the School of Politics and Global Studies at Arizona State University, believes it's a matter of virtue.
The system couldn't rest on the virtue of the people. So what the founders said was, we need a system that will operate like a republic, but it won't require the people to be virtuous. And so what they said was, here's what we'll do. We'll elect representatives to represent the people, and we'll try to make sure those people are virtuous. It works because the citizens are only going to be able to elect people from a list of candidates who are already, in some sense, chosen because they're supposed to be virtuous people. That was the idea. And they said what this new republic is, this expanded republic, is what we'll call a democratic republic.
But most Americans are not aware of the true origins of this nation's representative government and may not know what the founding fathers thought of democracy. What did they think of a democratic form of government?
It was a good one. It was a good idea to have. It just seems like it's kind of gotten farther away from that.
Well, I'm one of the few who recognizes our country as not a democracy as it was intended to be.
Sammons is aware of this American misconception and believes there is too much faith in a form of government that was not intended by the founders.
We care so much about democracy. We've been made to believe so much in it that we have this faith that if we just vote correctly, if we just make the right changes in our government, everything will get better. I mean, there's no political science institutes out there trying to form the next great form of government, find the next great form of government. Are there? I mean, have you encountered any political scientists who are working on, well, the next thing, it's not going to be democracy, it's going to be this other thing.
While Sammons believes that the Athenian form of pure democracy is not at all what we should aim for, Crittenden believes it's where we can start.
Athens represents a path we can take, but not a system that we want to emulate from start to finish. Unless we're talking, again, about ballots, ballot initiatives and referenda, we're asking people to vote for candidates. We have very little to say about who those candidates are. And I don't know that it matters one way or the other which of these people gets the nomination, because they're then going to run against somebody who we hope will have views that maybe don't oppose the positions, but at least challenge the positions. So all of this is about citizens voting for candidates and voting for nominees for office. I don't think that's really very demanding of people, and it certainly isn't what the Athenians did.
What Crittenden believes we should do is move toward a government of deliberation where citizens make their own laws. But what do people think about having that power?
I think that you do have to have some sort of control with representatives, but I do believe that the people need to have more say-so, more decision-making ability.
I actually think that will be an even worse situation than we currently have, but I think any further steps towards democracy would be a mistake politically.
I don't know that making my own laws would help, because I think we'd get a little too biased, but seeing all of us contribute to the system more, get a little more involved, and see votership rise would be pretty helpful. So we can have a way more active involvement than I think most people give democracy credit for.
Well, it would be good for me, but it wouldn't be good for everyone, and that would probably cause riots and stuff, so.
That'd be pretty cool. You obviously couldn't make everybody's laws come true, because people would just make laws to contradict other people's laws, but it would be a good idea.
I think that's a bad idea. I think the initiative concept is a bad idea. It takes a lot of time and energy to really understand the consequences of an issue, and it's usually not as simple as it seems on the surface. And that's why we should have people whose job it is to really do that research, understand those issues, and then make those decisions. The citizens shouldn't be the ones that are making the rules, because we don't have time. We have our jobs are something else.
Right.
I don't try and do my own plumbing. I don't try and do my own legal work. You hire experts to do it, and that's what I think democracy is, and I think we've lost some of that concept.
People don't have time. In today's world, that is very true, but Crittenden believes that is not a problem.
Deliberative democracy demands of citizens that they have to take the issue seriously. They have to meet with other citizens and deliberate about the issue. That requires time, it requires some energy, and it requires some brain power. Not that you have to have the brain power going in, but when you're there, you're going to learn about different sides of this initiative, this issue. So you're going to have to spend some time thinking about it, and then talking about it, and then in many ways debating it, or discussing it at least. There are plenty of people who are not going to want to do that. They struggle enough with the idea that they have to take 20 minutes out of their day to go and vote. I don't know that they're going to take 5 hours or 15 hours or 5 days to deliberate. But that's fine, because those people don't have the investment in the issue. And those are the people I want deliberating, and those are the people I want deciding. But I don't imagine, my imagination doesn't run to say there are going to be 50 million people who want to do this. I just don't think that would happen. But I would rather have decisions made by people invested in the issues. I'd rather have decisions made by people invested in the issues than by mass population voting in elections where they're not sure why they're voting for whatever they're voting for.
Some citizens believe, as James Madison did once, that our nation is too large for any form of democracy to work.
I don't think it will work. There's too many people. So I think we have no choice but to have representatives.
Well, people have changed. Times have changed. We are now in an era of technology where we are better able to get politically involved using these mobile devices. In fact, a Pew Research survey shows that in 2008, political activity had risen from 33% to 69% in 2012. The survey also showed that users of social networking sites have engaged in some sort of political engagement.
It is obvious then that with so much more access to political information and an increase in the ability to get involved, people are better able to adapt to a more democratic form of government like Crittenden's deliberative democracy.
And what that requires is thinking in terms of multiple, and I mean hundreds and thousands of small groups of people. So my imagination says what we can have are what Jefferson called, we can have a ward system. Jefferson wanted to divide the country into wards of 100. For him, it would be 100 adult males. Okay, let's imagine it's 100 families. So we have wards of 100 families in a country of 360 million people. Well, how's that going to work? Well, I think it would work because we have electronics, we have electronic systems, technology now, that will allow us to make this, I think, pretty effective, on the assumption that multiple groups are meeting at the same time on the same issue.
While
I
Crittenden
actually
believes
think
this
that would
deliberative
be
democracy
an
could
even worse
work
situation
for
than we
living up to
currently
our
have.
own interests and those of the country,
Well,
Sammons thinks
I'm
the
one of the
opposite.
few.
We care too much about politics, and we believe that politics are capable of making the world a much better place, changing our lives, making our lives better. And I think this is an offshoot of democracy. And I'm trying to get Americans to accept the idea that politics are probably not the answer to most of our problems.
But Crittenden stands firm by his belief that it's not about what deliberative democracy can do for the people, but what the people are able to accomplish with the ability to do so much more.
What I'm suggesting is citizens can do a lot more, and I think will want to do a lot more if they're making laws directly. So get them in a situation where they're deliberating. Don't worry about what it is they're bringing to that system. Just worry about the process in which they're going to participate. I think that's the important part.
So now you've heard these new ideas about deliberative democracy. At the end of the day, it is up to you to decide. Will you sit back and let representatives take your life in their hands, or will you get up, engage, and decide how you make your laws and how your life comes about?